mwingine miaka 3, wengine 2 tena, na hawa ndugu zangu tukangangana mpaka nikaweza kubomoa mabati. Mzee alikuwa amelala, nikamuita, nikamwambia asikie hiyo mgurumo, lakini haikukaa kwa muda mrefu. Nikamwaita tuokoe watoto juu walikuwa wamelala nyumba next, na kufika tu chini hivi hatukusikia maji, lakini kufungua mlango hivi ukuta ya nyuma ikabomolewa na maji.
Today it was mainly a clinic, a reminder that road safety actually is for all of us and should be adhered to at all times.
Kuwa na vifaa vya wanafunzi hasa sana chekechea, grade ya kwanza, ya pili, ya 3 na 4, kwa sababu vifaa vyao huwa vinabaki darasani. Hivyo vifaa kwa sababu ya mvua nyingi hatujaweza kuvipata.
Currently we are counting maybe 300 people have died, but most of them do not need to die across the country. It's because of recklessness and some drivers forcing their way through water.
Na hili shida limekuja ni ile inaitwa natural calamity. Sio serikali imesababisha, sio chief, sio wewe. Hii ni mambo ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Sisi tuliomba Mungu atusaidie mvua ya kuzalisha chakula.
Unajua huyu alikuwa mgeni, alikuwa ametoka pale Lamu saa hii. Ilikuwa ndo amefika pale ile maeneo. Sasa yeye alibeba bado excess na hapo anajua barabara, ndo akasema ule mwingine apite mbele amfuate nyuma. Hiyo harakati ya kupitana ni kama wamegwaruzana, aka lose control. Sasa ndo akaenda akatuzamisha kwa maji.
Hakuna haja ya wewe kutaka kucross maji kama haya na ujitie katika hali ya hatari. There's no need. Have patience for a day or 2 or 3 until we can see how the situation gets or improves. But when you just simply say because you want to rush somewhere impatiently, this is the out.
Africa being the youngest continent in the world, investing in education, in health, in social protection, gives us the opportunity to provide 40% of the world's workforce by 2050.
I want to urge our members, wherever they are, that every Tuesday you should join the doctors' demonstration. It is now official. Every public sector union should join doctors every Tuesday.
No one take us for granted. We have the ability of dictating what we want in this country. Our patience will not be seen as weakness. So, Mr. President, take charge. If you don't take charge, we will take charge.
All right, Tom Odege there, a member of the trade unions there. They're joining forces. They're actually, this is the civil servants right now. And also we've seen protest from the teachers as well. And right now we know the reality on the ground is it has been postponed for the next 1 week. They should be resuming the classes on the 6th of May. But is that the reality on the ground really? As far as the floods are concerned, why did this decision really come way too late in the day, causing confusion all over the country as it is right now? And I think the best person to who has a better handle on this is Mboko Milemo. You can tell us more about it. Were you surprised yourself as the chair of KUPPET?
I was surprised both as a Kenyan and the chair of KUPPET, just like other Kenyans, because ordinarily Kenyans went to bed knowing that schools will open, and given the precursor of communication that had happened in the ministry, Waziri himself had earlier indicated that he was thinking and he was getting information countrywide to see whether he could postpone the opening of schools, which I thought he had thought wisely about it. And that's about 2 weeks ago. But later on, Belio Kipsang did a statement, I know it's the PS, and indicated that despite the floods, only about 60, or was he saying 58?
40 schools
were affected, and therefore this will not affect the opening of schools on time. And therefore that was an assurance. The minister was quiet. And then now, 6 hours to the opening of schools, when everybody was ready, then the postponement is done. The ministry failed to put its thought together, to put its communication together, to consult both the leadership in the ministry down there and other education stakeholders down, including TAC and other many stakeholders there, the parents associations, the unions, so that we could have a consolidated opinion moving forward. And that's why very late in the night, the minister then decides to postpone. That's causing chaos. You know, schools do not just begin immediately. Learners in Coast who are traveling to Eldoret, like you saw, had already traveled. And most of them travel during the nights, others travel during the day. So those students are already in those schools. I would advise at this particular juncture, let the ministry, I thought they have done that, have a statement that the learners who are already in schools remain in schools because they are safe places. And the head teachers there and the teachers there can take care of them. With the floods ongoing, it will be very risky to have a learner going back home to Mombasa and will be traveling again on Monday. So then the ministry needs to have a good communication strategy and communicate on time. Decision making. We have seen lack of decision making and timely decision making. This was obvious that an action had to be implemented on the dates of opening. And therefore the minister, Machogu, should do much better. There's also very poor communication between the minister, his TAC, and possibly his ground people. Because an earlier meeting should have been held and a decision made much earlier. It has caused confusion and anarchy, and we saw students going back home. It was unnecessary. My advice, like I said, let those boarding students who are in school remain in those schools. It will be very risky to tell them to travel back. But there's a more serious challenge in the education sector. And I've seen you show it here, but you're not giving it the emphasis. That is the plight of the intern teachers. There are 46,000. JSS, remember the challenges of JSS. What is mitigating and running, the fuel running the JSS in this country are those teachers you are seeing here. And they are interns. Ordinarily, according to the Constitution, and I'm happy to be with two lawyers here, and the Constitution is also on the table. When you check TSC, TSC has powers to employ teachers on permanent and pensionable basis only. They have no powers to employ teachers on temporary, if I may use the word contractual, or internship. Now, we went this route because of the shortage of funds within government to employ these teachers on PNP. As a union, we resisted. But now, what has happened is that a court pronounced itself, nobody's speaking on that. A court 2 weeks ago pronounced itself on the fact that TSC is wrongfully employing those teachers. So as we speak now, TSC has got no capacity to take those teachers to schools. And if schools were to open yesterday, Wakili Manzo, these teachers would not be in schools. And therefore, JSS would collapse. So I'm not sure that the minister, given where he sits, was not aware of this. I suspect he was aware, and partly that's why the postponement came very late in the night. So we need to confront the animal of JSS teachers, whom now the courts have pronounced himself in a judgment by Judge Baira Mongaya that they are not supposed to be in schools as temporary, contractual, or interns. The ministry must now come to Parliament. An emergency kitty must be found to make these teachers go back to school as P and P, because we are a state that must operate as within the law and respecting the law, and that is why you are seeing those teachers. And indeed, our support is that these teachers be employed as permanent and pensionable. Nowhere in law is the Teacher Service Commission allowed to employ teachers on temporary basis. And if we were to open schools yesterday, the entire JSS would be paralyzed, because these are the teachers who are there.
So earlier information was that the schools was to open partially. Them that are really affected by the floods, they should not really open. But the rest of the schools should open. But now we have another confluence of a factor that are actually contributing now to postponing of this particular
in my
opinion,
that is true. It's very, very true. Otherwise, again, the ministry must check its statistics properly, because there's no guarantee that on 6th things will be better in terms of these floods. So we should think ahead. If it will not be good, still we have to postpone it for a number of days, and then we shall recover, like I heard one of us say when we are tending towards the closing. And this has happened before. During the COVID, we did postpone opening of schools, but we recovered everything. And we recovered everything by the time COVID was ending. So that's the state. Now you have also seen the civil servants there.
Yes.
Odege, I think I need to explain what's happening there. CS Kuria, after having a rabble with the doctors, which they have not cleared, decides that now he will employ all the civil servants on contractual basis. This is something that has been resisted by the workers since time immemorial, since the times of Moi. And now you say that now you want to do it. And I'm not happy about CS Kuria, because CS Kuria himself, who is also in my Kwanza government, was one of the activists who was supporting these workers not to be employed on contractual basis. You remember the SAPs. Wakilo Mugen should remember this because his age is good. When we had the SAPs and the government was being forced by the IMF and the World Bank to employ workers on contractual basis. And now he's bringing it back. And that's drawing in a whole set of civil servants, and that's why you have seen Odege, you have seen the leadership of the unions in the university section now calling out for more demonstrations. I think as a government, we have to be very, very strategic. Currently, we are dealing with a doctor strike. Why would we plunge ourselves in another murky waters of civil servants? Yet we also have the teachers on the table. Our CSS must support the president by being strategic. I don't know what they do during their meetings. In those meetings, they should be able to say, we are dealing with the doctors. Let's fix the doctors. They want certain things, if they have been fulfilled, before you start opening other doors of war. So if it goes the way it's going, and I can advise, because I've been here for some times, Waziri Kuria should retract this statement. TSC should employ these teachers on PNP, and then we confront the issues of the doctors so that we have the host to start to work, given that the floods are on. Instead of opening a can of worms and war fronts with workers in every sector. Suppose all the workers now went on the streets, we shall not be having a government and order.
Was there any likelihood of teachers going on the streets as well? Just as we've seen those particular protests there.
Bro, but you have seen the teachers are on the streets. Those already are JSS.
It's a pocket to them.
Yeah, it's a
pocket of the teachers.
Yeah.
We're just talking about collectively as a country, so that we have maybe a stalemate of what we do have with the health crisis as it is.
Quite easy. I can explain to you that the interns, as they are employed now, is a section that is not in the union currently, but we are supporting them. So it's not a likelihood that the mainstream has not made any decision to go on the streets, but it's already a portion of the teachers who are on the streets.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from Dan Mazo. The civil servants are here now. In light of that pronouncement of employing the civil servants on a contractual basis, I don't know what will be your comment, the repercussions, if we have all the trade unions joining hands together and saying, beginning today, there shall be, what will happen in the civil service?
Yeah, first of all, the trade unions are very, very important, and our country is run on the constitution and the law which has been passed by parliament, following public participation. Now, the moment there is a constitution owned by the people, there is a law passed by the people through parliament, and then the government decides to go outside the law and deal with the situations, I think is the most unfortunate. You end up running a government on ad hoc basis, dealing with problem after problem and failing to solve any problem for the benefit of the people of Kenya. And if you look at the teachers, you know, when the law says hire them, you know, permanently and pensionable, and then you come up with your own ad hoc situation whereby you give them 17,000, you want them to be with the students, they are teaching lessons they never trained for. You know, the whole idea of the new system of education was misconceived, you know, and untimely and done very poorly in a chaotic manner. And you see, the reason why a government is elected into place is to create stability and to have decision making which is for the benefit of the people. And that's why it's important to consult widely. That's why important, if it is the decision of reopening of schools, there are other forecasts which are worldwide. even which are very scientific. The trouble, with the floods is all over the country. You can see Tana River is affected, the coastal region is affected, Nairobi is affected, Western Kenya, everywhere. You have schools which are submerged in water. So the Minister of Education should have proper statistics and proper feedback before it makes a decision. So a minister makes a decision together with his peers, which is so chaotic, but it seems not to be their brain. It seems they were waiting for somebody else to think for them, and that delayed, that consultation. And you see, the government is supposed to be there for the benefit of the people, even when we have chaos, even when we have emergency. Everywhere, the whole world gets these unusual situations, gets flooded. But governments are prepared, and governments are orderly. Governments are proactive. They are not dealing with the situation after it has gone wrong. Why is somebody not inspecting all the dams in a county, all the dams by the national government? People are just seated in offices. The ministries, the ministers, the cabinet is waiting for one man, the president, to make up their mind for him. They're not advising properly. So we are in a chaotic situation, and it's a high time. All the teachers in the country, all the new teachers, all the parents, it's a high time now. We've got ourselves thinking, what sort of government do you want in the future? Do you want a chaotic government year after year, day after year, uncertainty, people who don't care about the livelihoods of people, government run on ad hoc basis, poor application of government funds? We are overtaxed, we have raised a lot of money, but it's not applied properly. The teachers have not gotten their share of the national cake, and then we just sit and everybody assumes that everything is okay. We have raised a lot of money for the housing. Where the house is going to be built on riverbeds? Is that proper investment of people's money? So there's a very big problem of management of the country. The government must go back to the drawing board and set its thing right, and the people are watching. And this government is failing day by day, month by month, year by year, and the Kenyans now must vote right in the future. We really are in a chaotic situation. We know Machogu is a very brilliant man. We were with him in parliament. He is a former DC. He is a very good administrator. But the country has been revisited by a spirit of confusion. The country is confused. And those who read the Bible, they know where the spirit of confusion comes from. It means the good Lord is unhappy with the current government, and it's a high time. Things were set right, and we need a lot of prayers, true prayers, so that the country can be on the right track.
Don Manzo is just falling short of saying Riswa.
He has gone spiritual.
It's gone spiritual. Let's hear from Okongo Mogini.
Though Manzo forgets we needed the rains. It's just that we are unable to manage ourselves in terms of information and warnings. But do you know that I went down to pray that the rains come?
Yes.
Because the drought we had was so serious. And the coming of the rains should not be condemned. We should manage ourselves to survive. We survive the rains. Otherwise, we need these rains for food. Do you know that where I come from, Western, which is the bedrock of the granary in Kitale and Nzoia and Bungoma and so on and so forth, today, the Gorogoro is still oscillating at 85. And I monitor it practically because it was so bad. It had gone to 250 shillings per Gorogoro. Now it's 85. Ordinarily, in the month of May, the Gorogoro usually goes crazy. This is when it should be oscillating at 160. And Omogendi is my neighbor, he knows that. So therefore, we need the rains. Let's manage ourselves during the rains. But we were doing so good in terms of food production. And that's the only remedy that can reduce the cost of living.
But unfortunately, so that Omogeni can come in, you see, we know very well after these rains, we are going to have a very long dry season. So we should also do water storage and do water storage properly. We have Flaka Dam, which the government has refused to complete. All this water is going back to the ocean instead of going to irrigate, now that there is climatic change. Instead of planting trees, we did an example of planting trees. You know, if we have a lot of trees, will not be heavy. This disaster will be mitigated. Will not be heavy. You know, dams flowing like this. With a lot of trees, the water will not be flooding as it is doing. So we are in a serious crisis of which the government, with proper information and proper application of the brains we have in this country, we should be able to manage the situation. But the government has failed completely. It has been revisited by a spirit of confusion. You saw a confused minister making a confused statement and confusing the whole country. Yet we know this man is a very brilliant man. Why such bad spirit of confusion in the country?
Let's say from Congo, Agony.
Yeah, I think first the instructions to close schools was necessary, there is no doubt, but poorly managed. It was bordering on a reactionary decision because these rains have been with us the whole week. We knew schools were opening on Monday, so in terms of decision making, CS Machogu did not get it right. That was belated. You know, I was reflecting. I went to school in a border town called Isibania, and I had friends who used to come to that school all the way from Nairobi. And I was trying to, you know, jog my memory, and I was like, if these were those days, my friends Jeff Sabai and the late Ben Gibore would have found this communication maybe somewhere past Nakuru, because they used to board Nairobi Bus Union. We used to have a bus called Nairobi Bus Union at 9:30 p.m. to arrive in Isbania the following day at 9 a.m. So you can imagine the inconvenience that you have caused to students, the agony to parents, you know. I don't know whether these kids carry phones to school. So even communicating back to parents, we have really caused agony for parents. And some of us who had parents who are not well endowed financially, all that we used to get was money to take you to school and maybe an extra 10 shillings. Maybe you, Dibal, you are more, you came from a more advantaged family. So you can imagine, you arrive in school. You know, nowadays, you don't even have transport to travel back home. You arrive in school and you will be told there is githeri every lunch, there is uji. So you don't need pocket money. That's what we survived on. Now you can imagine the inconvenience that these children and the families have gone through. And you didn't hear the government saying, we have made arrangements for kids who don't have transport. They will be given transport to go back home. It's just some magnanimous head teachers I saw announcing on TV that will take in these students, take care of them. We will not chase them away. The way Machogu handled this matter was bordering on being very insensitive to the parents, to the students. And I hope he's not going to do the same on Sunday. You know, you can project how the weather would be in the next 2 weeks so that you don't again wake up in a climate of confusion, again telling children at midnight that don't go to school. In fact, I don't know. The way I've seen soil just cracking and some buildings caving in my days where I went to school, we had pit latrines. Okay, you know. So as you open schools, there are so many things on the disaster management that the government should be doing. I will not be surprised if there are schools where the pit latrines have just carved in. Because what happens is that when you get a lot of rain, the soil weakens.
Don't belabor. In my own constituency, quite a number of carved in, including Sibuye, Murembe, so we are struggling.
You see. So really, I want my brother, CS Machogu, to look this much more deeply, you know. The government needs to mobilize. The administration of this country goes down to the chiefs, down up to the chiefs. He can get a report on the state of all schools. Are toilets working, you know? How is the situation? Are we at risk of getting waterborne diseases? So that if we are going to expose our children to a lot of risk, we can postpone the opening of schools even for 1 month. Because what is important, Ibal, for now is to take care of the welfare. You know, there is no country in the world that does not care about the welfare of its young population. Our children, these are the future leaders. You must care about their well-being. You must care about their welfare, so that by the time we are making a decision, it is scientific. You have taken the data, the situation in schools. I even saw a report that even capitation money has not been released to schools. Yes. So even if schools need to do some repairs, if this money has not been released, how are they going to respond to any emerging urgent situations? So all this should be done between today up to Friday. And we own up. Yeah, if we are not ready to open schools because of the disaster that has been brought by these heavy rains, we say, in the best interest of the children, we are pushing this for another 2 weeks. Please, my brother says, my chogu, show leadership. When you are in a situation like this, we need leadership. And leadership can only come from the CS himself.
But maybe the CS is the one who's actually now, having the egg on his face because of the dead hand of bureaucracy that is coming to the fore. I'm given to understand, according to pundits, that CS Machogu had actually indicated that we should postpone the opening of schools but at least a week, right? But there was a dead hand of bureaucracy between the Minister of Education and State House, and that's the latest development that we saw with them announcing and giving the communique at midnight, according to the pundits. I don't know what you will say. You might be here casting him, or the buck stops with him. So we don't want to know. The buck stops with the CS.
When you are given,
because they had actually raised the issue.
When you are given,
I'm just asking.
No, I'm just to discuss rumors.
I'm just saying pundits.
But I agree with you.
Yes.
There are some CSs who have been reduced to figureheads, where ministries are run by PSs who seem to be politically correct. Yeah. So
that's what we say.
I mean, if you are man enough and you have been given a docket, you should come out strongly and say, I'm the one in charge. I mean, these guys from the Omogusi community, we are very bold people. He should come up and tell his PS, I'm the one in charge. I mean, what this guy has served this country as a DC, is a former member of parliament. If he's being mistreated, he should call it quits. Because whether you talk about bureaucrats, about PS, every headline is talking about Machogu. You have not seen the newspapers talking about a PS. So you should not allow his name to be soiled because a PS somewhere wants to undermine him. Let him take charge of his docket. Let him show leadership. He's the guy that the country is looking up to. Nobody else. So let him take charge.
I would say this.
Now, I don't know that you wanted me to say something about the statement I've seen from Moses Kuria.
Yes, indeed.
At times, there are people you can look at and say, these ones never went to school. But Moses Kuria was with me, University of Nairobi. We were student leadership together. I considered him a progressive. I considered him a Democrat. Some of the pronouncements he's making, he makes us to vicariously get embarrassed on his behalf because we are alumni of university, in fact, not the University of Nairobi. So we expect when somebody from that prestigious university is given a docket, you're a CS, you should fly the flag high for that university. You cannot wake up. You know that in labor laws, employers have some rights that you cannot wake up and take away. When you have civil servants who have been employed permanent and pensionable, they have letters of appointment. You know that the constitution that we passed in 2010 has a very, very strong chapter on fundamental human rights, including labor relations, fair administrative action in Article 47. You cannot wake up one day and just announce that I'm going to have civil servants convert. That's convert, that I'm going to convert civil servants into contractual. That cannot happen in a democracy like Kenya. The arrogance I see from this government at times defeats all logic. You are serving the first term, you need second term, but the way you make your pronouncement is that you're actually daring Kenyans. You're telling them, even if I'm going to face a vote, mutadu, either there are people in this old administration who just want President William Ruto to serve one term, or to quote Mahanzo, they have been invaded by a spirit of confusion. Because there are some things you don't do when you really expect to win a second term. So I want to caution my brother, Moses Kuria. He's going the wrong route. He's going to create a serious unrest within the labor movement, which will really cause a lot of disruption in terms of this administration governing, creating an harmonious environment to have service delivery to Kenyans. If he's listening to me this morning, let him retract that statement and allow civil servants. That's how it happens world all over. If you're not on permanent pension, you'll have a very good superannuation. They call it superannuation scheme, where, you know, when you retire, you go home comfortable. You go to America, people are serving permanent and pension. When you retire, you have a nice pension, you have a good medical cover. The country appreciates that you served the nation, and you should go and enjoy. When you retire, the word Mheshimiwa Mboko is to enjoy. You're supposed to enjoy your retirement, not to go home empty-handed.
Very well.
Rest my case.
I wanted to...
But I wanted just before you come to Mboko, I wanted to ask, don't you think also there is maybe a dead hand of bureaucracy? Is Kuria speaking for himself, or he has actually been, it's an emissary that actually is relaying this particular message? As just a pause giver, you can think about it.
Well, I wanted to indicate that maybe, let me begin with that one. You know, Kuria himself is also a very independent thinker. You cannot underrate Kuria. And this colleague who is speaking here knows that. He's a great mind. Remember some of the positions he took, even when the government was taking a different position. He's a man who said, no, this is what I think. And he's very bold. And therefore, I have a lot of confidence in him, and he has been very consistent. But on this one, we have what we call the tripartite in employment and labor laws. The tripartite brings together the government. The government is the main player here, but the workers and the unions. When you are to make any decision within the labor, and it's also in our law, both the Labor Relations Act, I'm with two lawyers here today, you will find the issue of the tripartite at the ILO. So you cannot make a sweeping statement about how you will convert PNP to temporary without having a tripartite. And whichever way, if you go that direction, when you are, if I may borrow your own word, pundits will get to it more thoroughly. It's very risky when you have temporary workers in the public service, because they'll become very corrupt. They know that they are there for a small season, and their production will be very, 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 very scanty. So it's preferred that you have the PNPs. So that's a long discussion I think that we should be having with CS Korea, because away from even the policies adopting, the policy itself can be very destructive in any system, and many governments around the world have avoided that, especially in the civil service. You need people who are responsible, who know that they have safety of employment, and therefore they'll work for you diligently until when they get out in retirement. I'm happy what you talked about, we brought it here in Kenya. Now under this government you don't have the superannuation, and the superannuation scheme is there. Last 2, 3, 4 weeks, I've been very busy in Parliament struggling to have our superannuation scheme get its trustees. The main oversight trustees are from the Union of Public Civil Servants and other unions, but they have not been nominated. I want to thank the fact that finally the CS Treasurer decided to nominate, to gazette these trustees, because there was a lull and a stoppage in the operation of the superannuation scheme. Otherwise, it's here. And now I am expecting that it will now become operational. Back to Machogu. Machogu, very seasoned, and he's not as weak as Omwamu Mugendi imagines, because I've seen him make decisions. But on this one, he spoke on it and later on disappeared himself. I hope he will not disappear until Sunday. Coming Sunday. We must speak on this thing on Thursday. That's what I was trying to shout.
Or he'll be in church on Saturday.
No, we must speak. We must give the next instructions on Thursday. Because we assess today, tomorrow, then Thursday afternoon, a statement must come from the ministry indicating that we have seen the situation and we are proposing that we are still opening on 6th, or we are postponing for another 1 week or 2 weeks. depending on how the situation will be. Remember, we have no control over this force majeure, after all.
So together with the capitation as well.
And together with the capitation, the combination must come on Thursday. And he could quickly organize a meeting for those stakeholders today and tomorrow, and those who can help him make a decision. And really, like you said, the decision remains with him, because he's the Minister for Education, and everything education is under him. So this idea of you wanted to propose that we discuss rumor is being managed or mismanaged. No. My friend, this program right now, as we are here, you are in charge of this program. You cannot say somebody is I know you are wearing some things in your ears, but if you tell us that this program has gone wrong because you are being mismanaged or managed by somebody else, then you are not in the business of this work. So let him take his place, and I'm sure he's taking his place to work. So therefore, postponement was good, but bad time. So on Thursday, give a statement on whether we are opening on 6th, and boldly, or we are not opening. We should remember the days of those guys who managed the COVID. Where is that man called Dr. It was called Dr. The one who appeared on TV every day giving us instruction about COVID. That is how it should be. Communicate. And people listen to those communications.
Yeah, it's true.
And they follow them. Even today, if one of the officers from the Meteorological Department and State Security Department came out and said he has gotten information from the Meteorological Department that it will be bad as from 4, and therefore it may be need and in the interest of Kenyans that we close work at 4:30. It will be taken. And if it's good for lives of people, it should just be taken. Then we have the issue of the confusion that was caused. Students traveling back home, I think I've spoken on it. And we may have the issue of extending that period. And also, we need, of course, I've talked about the meeting, and then we need to disperse the funds. But above all, also, another meeting needs to be convened quickly. We cannot just rely on some natural forces coming to solve the situation of interns. I think the interns issues need to be addressed quickly.
Thank you.
Within the next 2 days, so that they're employed as PNP.
Fantastic.
And finally, as you stop me, I think that we would have done better. And we have a chance to do.
We have a chance to do. Thank you. So I wanted just to raise the issue. If we have all these concerted efforts from the public officers who was threatening now to go on strike, what are we looking at? Are we having a sort of a government shutdown? Because we have members from the universities, civil servants going on strike. What are we looking at? What is the spectre? Joining also forces with the doctors. Dan Mazo or Kongo Mogeni.
Yeah, I don't want to think for government, but I don't think any reasonable government wants to drive itself to such an unrest. Because if you have all public servants joining up, teaming up, protesting against the government of the day, it's not something you should look forward to. It will create a very, very chaotic situation. It will create a breakdown on service delivery. I don't think the government will like it. And then what is provoking? There's PLO Lumumba used to say, don't respond to a mosquito bite with a hammer. What is triggering this pronouncement is the doctors' strike. Doctors have raised grievances, and personally, as a member of Health Committee, we have said, and we had a meeting last week, calling all stakeholders and saying the issues that doctors have raised are issues that can be dealt with one by one. You don't need to react to that, to the doctor strike by saying we are going to hit the entire civil service very hard. That's not the way to do. So if you are trying to provoke all civil servants to come out to the streets, you don't know how that will, it will build to be another animal, because I guess, I don't know how the kind of support they command. I don't know how the workers listen to their union, I don't know. But if you were to look at a situation where the union calls all civil servants in 47 counties and sub-counties, if you have all those workers out in the street protesting, you will have a country that will have totally broken down. because there will be no service delivery anywhere. And I'm thinking even the person who is serving government at that lower level, called a chief, is affected. Even a chief is on permanent and pension. And some are looking forward to retiring and getting their pension. Then you tell them you are going to convert them to part-time. It will be very chaotic. It will be very chaotic.
All right.
I think under the circumstances where we are with the doctor strike, and these are the platforms even for me to give my advice as a in a small way seasoned person in this field. I'm happy they are dealing with the doctor strike. The only solution is to still go back to the table. I made an effort to call the Waziri Labor, though she did not pick my call. And I've also tried to get to the other players there. A situation like the doctor strike, just go back on table and listen to each other. Even the CS Nahumicha, get to the table. And everybody else who is involved. And CBS are legal documents. And then unpack and then pack again to see what can be done now, what can be done tomorrow, what are the promissory notes. That is how the movement of the union works. So that the doctors are losing nothing, but the government is also losing nothing. And they have a time frame over which all these things will be realized. I talk boldly, and I should talk boldly here without looking down, because remember, we have had negotiations where you find that they are mitigated after 3 years, after 2 years. That's the line of thinking that they should have, with open mind on that particular table. That should bring calmness in that particular section, so that nobody will be losing anything. If anybody loses anything, it will be just time. That, okay, you are not getting this today, but you'll have it tomorrow, but it's still intact. You don't throw away the entire pack. So a proper negotiation, and I noticed they were claiming they had done everything except one. So why can't they go back and deal with that particular one? I remember one time Uhuru Kenyatta calling me at when I'd left the Teachers Service Commission, that was 2000 and the 50-60 case for the teachers, and told us go back and start negotiating again at 2. So let them just go back on the table. They will agree. On the issue of CS Kuria, I've spoken about it, but I would really advise he withdraws that notice. It's not necessary now.
Okay.
When we are already dealing with this other matter, and then the issue of interns. You have to do these things in a way that you are actually coordinated, and then capitation, of course. When we open schools, the schools will require money, because the government has become the surrogate parent, and it has to pay.
All right, I want to turn the clock a bit. I can hear from Dan Mazo. If you wanted to comment, on the issue. Yes, but the issue, the issue of the labor relations. There's a labor relations bill, and I think actually it's on the floor of the House. That is the Senate, not the National Assembly. Yeah, that has been raised by Eddie Okech. I just wanted to ask, especially on the issue of the time limits. The time limits. Yeah, I wanted just to ask about that, because we have trade unionists, the chair like you, who are there for donkey years.
I think I should go first.
And we have also Atwoli really now stoutly, coming against this and saying, oh, this is not, it's going against the tenets of the constitution as far as free and fair elections is concerned. But should we revisit this? We have the Federation of Kenya employers as well, the executive director. You've been there for donkey years as well. Where do we come with term limits? You as a chair, you couldn't be there for donkey years as well. Do you think this is, tomorrow is Labor Day?
No, let me go first. I know Mugeni will have this.
Maybe I should hear from Mugeni, and then we get a response from him.
But good luck. Mugeni himself is a man of law and constitutions and so on and so forth. We just, but now that it's in the Senate and it was to become a law, we shall wait for it. But the law as it is now is that the unions and even the labor centers, Kotu is a labor center, is not a union per se, operate with its constitution. And also we have other acts that govern and regulations. And these are people who come to office as elected members of those offices. And they can be elected as much as the members are willing to elect them. When I heard about that particular bill, and it's in the Senate, I also thought about ourselves, even as the ones who are making that particular law as parliamentarians. And no, I'm in parliament with people who have been there for 5 terms. And some have even been there for 6 terms. And now let me give an old example, which both Manzo is privy to, given his history in politics. So it's older than mine.
Yes.
Mwai Kibaki.
Yes.
Comes in as brought in by Odinga from Makerere to join KANU, and he's elected. And he's elected from the time he came in 1960 something, so around 62.
Yes.
Up to the time when he becomes president. We could try Moi. Elected positions. He comes in 1957, when we have the first elections for the Africans. The 7, were they 8? History is beating me again. Up. Forget about them. But look even at the elected positions we have. So if that law, and the parliamentarians are very brilliant people, they will purge it properly. Because if that law is to go through, then it will mean also even us, as members of parliament, we should have limits of terms. And many other players should also be limited, because I know the president is limited, the governors are limited, we are not limited as members of parliament, and many other players. So it will be a very broad discussion. Otherwise, as it is now, it is you can be elected, and if you win, you will get that.
But it's not as broad as you're putting it, because there's a specificity with and particular intent with the bill itself. It's a trade unionist, because we've seen even when you look at COTU as it is right now, I think he will be the longest serving member of COTU if it sells through, even surpassing
He can even be longer, because when I go to the ILO, where we are going, I think they'll travel there next month, for those who will travel, there are officers within ILO who have the history of ILO itself. And some of them are quite poor. And that's a strength.
You know the doctor's strike is a very serious matter, and especially when you compound it with the floods, and that there is likelihood of many diseases coming up, and doctors are not there to serve the public. I think it's a high time, the government and the doctors, the win-win situation.
Win-win situation.
The moment the government is keeping on a very hard position and isn't changing it, it is no longer serving the purpose of the people. I really want us to look at the Kibaki administration, whereby the Minister of Health would be first of all a doctor himself, and will take fully charge of the Ministry of Health. And the government will also work, collaterally, so that decisions of the government are one, the cabinet is one. Now we have a situation whereby, although this government claims to be following Kibaki's footsteps, they are very far from Kibaki's footsteps. In Kibaki's days, government worked. If we had a situation like this, the doctor's situation would have been sorted. The interns are very, very important in the discipline of medicine. They are already been in university for 6 years, and they are only acquiring and owning their skills through practicals, and they are actually working. So they're in a very unique situation, which should be taken in a unique manner. And therefore, the government should move quickly and sort out the doctor strike. You can see the other now strikes and serious mistakes without following the law. You cannot convert a chief from permanent and pensionable to a contract. Then it means you are going to cause confusion, further confusion into the country, whereby even as Vokamulema said, you will increase corruption in the country. We are trying to fight corruption. We have very good policies in the government, which now the current government has abandoned. And you see, policies have been there for years and they've been passed by parliament. So we should follow policies. We should follow precedents. What is happening with other successful governments in the world? Why are we in a chaotic situation whereby the government is confused and it is torturing its people? From labor situations, from doctor strike to teacher strike to now all public servant strikes. If you need to be guaranteed by law, and the law has guaranteed. if you are permanent and pensionable. Somebody cannot come all of a sudden and put you into a contract. They just want to hire their own people. They want to sack people so that they can hire their own. And I think it's a very unfortunate situation. It is as if there is no longer cabinet in this nation. Those days, a minister in charge of education was a minister in charge of education. You deliver for the people of Kenya. And President Kibaki, who was very experienced administrator and an economist, led the country well. Kenyans are missing a Kibaki situation, and I think that's what we need to go to, where there is stability, where there is hope, and where you can predict where the country is heading. So I think it's a high time all these strikes were sorted out once and for all. The government buys the bullet, sorts out the strikes, and the government goes back to serve Kenyans. Kenyans are not being served now, and I think the striking doctors' situation should be sorted as quickly as possible, bearing in mind we have floods and there are huge diseases coming. People have already died of floods. Why are we waiting for people now to die of disease?
I was hoping also you'll piggyback of what we were talking about regarding the labor relations bill. That is
that labor relations bill is already at the Senate. It's still a bill, has not become law. It's supposed to be amended for the purposes of the people.
What are your thoughts about regarding the whole issue around it? You know, it's a bill, yes.
You know, a labor relations bill should reinforce, you know, and safeguard, you know, the rights, the constitutionally guaranteed rights of workers. Any law which is eroding the rights of workers.
But you're missing it. We're talking about the term limit itself. Yeah, you're missing it by 1,000 miles. We're talking about the term limits of the trade unions, you know, chairs. Yeah,
you know, you cannot have a law which comes to erode the gains they made. You know, term limits. You know, the labor regime has its own systems, and it has copied even international standards. So there is a way these people get elected in the labor situation. You see, the labor regime goes with how long, you know, you've been serving. You see, if you are permanent and pensionable and you are eligible for election, that law can only tie with the constitution and international practices which have worked. So you should not be bringing a law to target certain individuals. I think that's the most. Then the law misses the point.
So you think this is targeting?
You know, if you are bringing a law to Parliament to come and destroy certain people, I think that law is totally misplaced and should not be assigned.
The thing you have got is that's more of just targeting veteran Atuole.
Yes, you don't bring a law to target Atuole.
Yeah, which law?
And then destroy.
You know, normally laws respond to situations. Right. When you are enacting a law.
Would you allow me just to button so that you can actually circle back with that Okongo Mogini? I give you time also to slake your thirst a bit so that you can prepare your what do they call it? I don't want to mention that on air. Yeah, but you can prepare your statement or maybe your comments on that as well. But when we circle back as well, we want to look at what is the other development on the Senate floor, which is when we're talking about targeting the trade unionists, leaders. Also, we have the weaponization of the county assemblies, especially with the impeachment of governors as well. There is, I think, some tweaking and some tucking that is happening within the Senate. This discussion is there on how also the impeachment of governors can be handled as well. And we'll tell us more about that on the other side of the break. But we'll take a short break right now.